We have objects in our airspace that we cannot identify. We don't know what they are. This is what they want you to believe, that after 80 years of investigation, trillions in black budget money, and recovering crashed materials, they still have no idea. But what if the director of Project Blue Book confessed on his deathbed that they did know? What if generals and NASA scientists have been saying for years that these objects show no hostility? This isn't disclosure, it's the next phase of the cover-up, and it's time you knew why. It's highly unlikely to find anyone within the field of ufology who would contest the extraterrestrial hypothesis as an explanation for the UFO phenomenon. The presence of objects moving at extraordinary speeds and executing maneuvers beyond the capabilities of known aircraft, seemingly harnessing technology with the potential to revolutionize our understanding of physics, has now been acknowledged by several countries through official channels. To clarify, while the reality itself is not new, its discussion has entered mainstream discourse. Recently, the United States government publicly acknowledged the existence of these objects, albeit with the simultaneous assertion that they remain uncertain about their nature. This assertion appears somewhat dubious, as numerous insiders have come forward to assert that the US government has indeed recovered some of these mysterious objects. But public UFO disclosure today, unfortunately, doesn't seem to be much different than what it was decades ago. In the past, we've seen presidents like Harry Truman, for example, publicly acknowledge the reality of UFOs. We've also seen programs implemented within government, like Project Blue Book, to study them. The end result always seems to be the same: we don't know what they are. Given the fact that big governments and big media has a track record of keeping things unclear to the public, relying on these entities for any kind of significant truth may be the wrong approach, as in many cases they are used as tools of deception, perception manipulation, and psychological warfare. In his very last interview before his death, Colonel Robert Friend, who from 1958-1962 was a director of the US government's investigation into the phenomenon at the time, Blue Book, suggests the US Air Force knew what these objects were, which is why they shut down the program, hinting at the idea that they knew they were extraterrestrial. Further, people who have claimed to have contact with these beings have been completely ignored during public UFO disclosure. If we had potential eyewitnesses, wouldn't it be a good idea to inquire about their experiences and apply some curious rigor to their stories? Furthermore, a plethora of people within military, intelligence, and government agencies who have chosen to speak out about what they apparently know have been completely ignored. Why is it that all of these people and their opinions are constantly ignored and kept from wider public discourse? As of now, it seems mainstream media and government are only interested shining light on somebody who acknowledges the reality of these objects, but sticks to the "we don't know what they are" narrative. One example of a worthwhile whistleblower would be General Leonid G. Ivashov. According to him, yes, surely aliens in one form or another, and in one way or another, are present on the planet Earth. But so far, the extraterrestrials have not caused any damage with their presence. No damage to Earthlings, infrastructure, or any other living organisms on Earth. So to say that there is an alien threat, well, that probably doesn't correspond to reality. Ivashov can be seen saying this in a clip taken from Dr. Stephen Greer's recent film, The Cosmic Hoax, at the 1 hour and 14-minute mark. These words, again, complement others who would be in a position to know. Colonel Lauren Ross Dedrickson had an 8-year stint with the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission. During that time, he learned of many apparent extraterrestrial encounters, and has also expressed that one of their main concerns is the preservation of planet Earth. One claim or whistleblower wouldn't be such a big deal, but there are hundreds who've come forward with very little attention received. Dr. Richard F. Haynes, a senior NASA scientist for more than 2 decades, claims that in 50% of the cases he's come across, the objects appear to come within the vicinity of our aircraft, perform fascinating maneuvers, and demonstrate what appears to be curiosity. He mentions that the phenomenon seems to perform evasive maneuvers to avoid our aircraft as to not create any sort of potential for a collision. Haynes's claims remind me of the following quote from General Nathan Twining in 1947. The phenomenon reported is something real and not visionary or fictitious. The reported operating characteristics, such as extreme rates of climb, maneuverability, particularly in roll, and the actions which must be considered evasive when sighted or contacted by friendly aircraft and radar, lend belief to the possibility that some of the objects are controlled either manually, automatically, or remotely. Source: if this phenomenon is perceived by governments as a threat, and it is presented to the masses in that manner, it appears it may be misleading and not an accurate representation of what's being observed. And for those who think people aren't ready, a recent study suggested the majority would be quite happy about the ET reality. The contemporary moment in the study of unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, is defined by a profound and, many would argue, a deliberately manufactured paradox. On one hand, we are witnessing an unprecedented, official acknowledgement from powerful governments, including the United States, that objects of unknown origin, possessing capabilities that defy our understanding of physics, are operating with impunity in our sovereign airspace. This constitutes a monumental shift from decades of official ridicule and denial. Yet, on the other hand, this so-called disclosure is ring-fenced by a persistent and seemingly intentional state of ambiguity. The official refrain remains a stagnant, "We don't know what they are," a conclusion that grows less credible with each passing year and each new whistleblower account. The inescapable conclusion is that we are not witnessing a genuine unveiling of truth, but a carefully managed narrative, a form of controlled disclosure designed to acclimate the public to the reality of the phenomenon without revealing its unsettling core truths. This strategy of ambiguity is not a new development, but a consistent feature of the official playbook, as evidenced by the historical trajectory from President Truman's acknowledgments to the ultimately inconclusive findings of Project Blue Book. The deathbed testimony of Colonel Robert Friend, a director of that very project, is damning. The program was shut down not because the mystery was unsolvable, but because the Air Force had reached a conclusion it was unwilling to share with the public. This pattern suggests that the true nature of the phenomenon has been understood, at least in part, by insiders for decades. The current political theater, with its congressional hearings and declassified videos, appears to be a continuation of this long-standing policy, admitting the existence of the what while obfuscating the who and the why. The most glaring flaw in this official narrative is its systematic exclusion of the most compelling evidence, human testimony. The current disclosure process conveniently ignores two critical groups. First, it dismisses the vast corpus of contactee and abductee experiences, which, regardless of their bizarre and often traumatic nature, represent a consistent pattern of interaction that demands rigorous investigation rather than outright dismissal. Second, and more significantly, it sidelines the hundreds of credible military, intelligence, and government insiders who have risked their careers and reputations to come forward. Figures like General Leonid Ivashov and Colonel Lauren Ross Dedrickson do not speak from speculation. They speak from positions of high-level access, and their collective testimony paints a picture that starkly contradicts the official stance of ignorance. They suggest a phenomenon that is not only real but has been engaged with, and one that appears to be non-hostile, even concerned with the preservation of our planet. This last point reveals the potential heart of the deception. The official narrative, when it occasionally dares to speculate, often leans into the language of potential threat. This framing is a powerful tool for maintaining control, justifying secrecy under the guise of national security, and priming the public for a future of conflict. However, the observations of veterans like Dr. Richard Haynes and the historical analysis of General Nathan Twining suggest the opposite. These objects consistently demonstrate evasive, non-aggressive behavior. If the true collected intelligence indicated a malevolent intent, it is unlikely that these craft would display such a persistent and curious avoidance of collision. The threat narrative appears to be a political and military construct, not an empirical conclusion derived from the phenomenon's observed actions. Therefore, the central question is no longer, are UFOs real, but why is the truth being meted out in such a cautious, deceptive, and fragmented manner? The answer likely lies in the shattering implications of the phenomenon. A genuine admission of a non-human intelligence, particularly one that is technologically and perhaps spiritually superior, would trigger a paradigm shift unlike any in human history. It would destabilize global power structures, undermine the foundations of our economic and energy systems, and challenge every religious, philosophical, and scientific tenet upon which our civilization is built. The powers that be are not necessarily hiding a terrifying weapon. They may be hiding a terrifying truth. That we are not the masters of our world, that our history is not what we believe it to be, and that our self-destructive path as a species is being monitored by an intelligence we cannot control. In the final analysis, the current state of UFO disclosure is a mirror reflecting our own societal structures of power, control, and fear. It demonstrates that governments are not truth-seeking institutions, but political entities whose primary goal is self-preservation. Relying on them for a full and honest accounting is, as the evidence suggests, a futile endeavor. The real path to understanding will not come from press releases from the Pentagon, but from the continued courage of whistleblowers, the diligent work of independent researchers, and the growing public demand for transparency. The phenomenon itself is real. The technology is real. The only thing that remains unreal is the official story. The ultimate disclosure will not be a gift granted by our leaders. It will be a truth wrested from them by a public that has finally grown weary of the cosmic lie. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Drop a comment below with your thoughts. I love hearing from you. Check out more videos on the screen, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.